Board of Health meeting for Tuesday, July 11, 2023. And then if you could give us the roll call, that would be great.
Mayor Condrey?
Here.
Mr. Richmond?
Here.
Ms. Cash?
Here.
Ms. Sipsey?
Here.
Ms. Lawley?
Here.
Mr. Bonnell?
Here.
Dr. Zoller?
Here.
Okay, that's everybody, huh?
Yes.
Man, you guys are all a good group. By the way, just a quick update on Board of Health members. There is an open vacant seat. I saw we did have an applicant, so it's possible we could by next Tuesday have another. Next Tuesday is the next council meeting, yeah.
Okay.
So it's possible we could get somebody added to fill the slot, which is only available to the end of the year, but still, just so you guys know. Okay, do we have any citizen comments? Nope. Okay, approval of minutes. Anybody have any additions or corrections to either of the sets of minutes from June 13th or June 20th? Which thank you everybody for attending. The special meeting with council, it's not a normal thing. We haven't done that, I think, at all since I've been here, so thank you guys for that extra effort. But any corrections or additions to either one? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the June 13th, 2023 Board of Health minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the June 20th, 2023 special session of City Council minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the June 2023 financial report, any questions on that before we make any motions? Okay, do we have a motion to receive and file the June 2023 financial report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, education presentation today, emergency preparedness. Well, that's a different one.
Olivia has been teaching us and training us in our area of emergency preparedness, and I wanted her to come and do a presentation for the board, and just a basic, quick one, so that you guys can kind of get the idea of what emergency preparedness is, some of the terminology, and what some of the things that we may have to do just in case. She's also, I mean, she's an amazing trainer. She was hard. She was hard on us. And she also is planning our next training this Thursday for earthquakes. So we'll get that too. So, Olivia Hall.
Great, good morning, y'all. So as Jackie kind of already introduced, I'll be talking about emergency preparedness today. I'm sure some of you have had some exposure to it because we all had to do drills, you know, in school and workplace and stuff like that. So let's just get started. And it's not blinking. Oh, it just keeps pausing the. There you go. All right, let's start with the basics. So originally it started out as a very simple on-the-scene management system called the incident command system. And it basically just had certain duties and responsibilities assigned to certain positions. So you'd have one person doing incident command, the incident commander, and he would take charge of whatever it was. And then you'd have other people, you know, sorted out to do other things. Obviously, people really liked that, and it grew just beyond the, you know, police and fire who originally used it, and it became what's called the National Incident Management System, and it grew to what you see at the top here, where it tells you like these bigger overarching branches, and it also became more scalable, so it was more for, you know, any size incident or event that you might need this kind of system for. And eventually it grew into the National Response Framework, which is now what the federal government uses to tell everybody what they want you to do and like kind of their expectations for how you need to respond and prepare for these kinds of emergencies. So emergency preparedness, even though a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about has been occurring through the 20th century, it began in earnest post 9/11. Obviously, the response itself to a 9/11 was obviously like huge, and people were very ready to respond to it. It still needed some more support and more organization. So the federal government obviously was pushing for more sectors and more industries to be more involved in this kind of response. So obviously, emergency preparedness is preparing for emergencies. So we're going to talk about what is an emergency and how we actually do prepare for that kind of thing. possible here.
That's good, that started the camera back up, because I think it stopped.
Well, I was gonna say,
Just do them, yeah.
Okay. All right, so obviously since you guys, I should say not we, are the Board of Health, you're gonna be looking at public health emergencies. And obviously what a public health emergency is anything that acutely affects public health, which is a lot of things, obviously. And, you know, even though I say acutely, we also look at chronically, like, because we know that if there's like a chemical leak, we have like the effects just then and there, right, following the event, but also how that might affect people over time. But in this circumstance that I'm talking about, it's just then and there, right after the incident, how do we respond to that? So the CDC has created core capabilities, which is what the CDC, as our public health entity, what they want us to do. And the 32 capabilities basically go into what we need to do, how we need to do it, best practices, things like that, and gives us the tools and resources on how to do that. And of course, the other thing we have is from the National Response Framework is called the ESFs, or the Emergency Support Functions, which for us it's 6 and 8, and that directly affects how public health goes into our responses at a federal level. That's what they ask for. Now, which button do I need to push?
Use the mouse.
All right, so this is from like a direct quote from the National Response Framework, which is led by FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And basically it says, we need to have a secure and resilient nation with the capabilities required across the whole community to prevent, protect, mitigate, and respond and recover to threats and hazards that pose the greatest risk. So I'm gonna talk about specific points because that's the more important part about this. So what do we mean when we say whole community? So for the longest time, we just kind of assumed that people could do certain things when we're talking about, you know, how do you prepare? Do you have your, you know, emergency plan? Do you have your emergency contacts, things like that? But really, there's a greater and broader group that we need to actually be helping and trying to prepare for. So whole community often gets thrown around when we're talking about populations with access and functional needs, and how we need to like make sure we're reaching out to them and actually working with them, rather than just, you know, plowing through and assuming that, you know, everyone can do what we're asking them to do. The next thing that I want to talk about is the part where it's saying prevent, protect, mitigate, respond, recover. Now these are obviously the different phases through an emergency we might go through. Now these are obviously interconnected. They don't just happen from like, it doesn't go from prevent to protect to mitigate. They all flow into one another and can happen at any point during the emergency. But this is the mission statement for FEMA, and this is obviously a big point of how we, you know, operate. We'll also like create our plans around. The next step I'm going to talk about is when I say hazards that pose the greatest risk. We can pretty much plan for any sort of emergency. We can plan for someone stubbing their toe. That could be an emergency, but is that really a public health emergency? So we obviously have limited resources, so what we have to look for is the kinds of events that have the greatest impact and the greatest likelihood to happen. So anything in that top right corner are the emergencies that we're really focused on, and then from there we might have other, you know, special plans for, but for the most part we're looking at things that are the most likely and the most severe thing to happen. So most of our plans work kind of like a chain link, as you can see in my little picture. So they obviously start at the federal level and they work their way down to the local level, and then within each of these like levels of government, we have different organizational, agency, departmental, divisional, and individual plans within it. And they basically all work so that depending on how big the incident is, we can climb up that chain link and start working and looking at other resources within others' plans, and then kind of narrow it back in to help focus how we go about to responding to that emergency. And of course, what we care about as the health department is our emergency operations plan and our emergency response plan. So one thing I also do want to mention is plans are living documents because plans never stop being updated and changed. Planning doesn't ever end. I mean, every year we have deliverables for grants, things we have to do, and they'll tell us we need to have this, this, and this, or we have to change this, this, and this. So even though plans seem like they need to be this kind of solid, concrete thing that doesn't change and they're static, they're definitely not static. They're always dynamic and changing, and I'll talk about a little bit more about why that's the case. So, not to overwhelm you, but this is basically all the plans and topics that we have right now. And of course, they go from, you know, natural disasters to biological threats, terrorism, and then all of the kinds of operations we might do to support our response. And obviously this is such an ugly slide. There's too much text. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that public health's role is expanding. We have a ton of responsibilities now, and that's simply because hazards are evolving and changing, and the understanding of those hazards and health impacts are also becoming more, or coming to light. So that is why I would say, you know, how impacts chronically versus acutely, like that wasn't really a thing back in the day. They're starting to understand and have a better idea about how emergencies impact us. So what does that mean for you guys? So the Board of Health has kind of three main things that I have highlighted. They can do more, obviously, depending on what you guys want to do. But in the general sense, you guys are going to represent the CMHD's broader goals in terms of, you know, the Emergency Operations Center, which is part of that NIMS, the National Incident Management System. You're going to be called to make important response decisions. The other thing is you're probably going to end up staffing for us. Obviously, that's completely voluntary, but some of you have backgrounds in medicine, so you might be able to dispense medicines or give vaccines. And you also might be able to participate in health communications and health education, so like actually getting the word out there and getting important information out to people. And of course, you're important in my planning process. You know, a lot of you guys have to authorize my plans. I have to bring the plans to you, and you have to sign off on them. And obviously, education, you know, you guys are going to be planning a lot of the programs and stuff. You're going to be involved in, you know, being in our community and getting that word out there and like teaching people that, you know, you need to have an emergency preparedness plan, things like that. All right, so that is kind of the gist of my presentation. Do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns?
So are you working on plans right now and updating Middletown's plans?
Yeah, for the most part, like I got a big bulk of it done, but right now we're working on FAB, our accreditation stuff right now. That's at least that's what I'm working on, but yeah.
I think she did an excellent job. It's very important when we started out. I'll try to say, give one quick example, and this was acute, really quick. We had a TB case a long time ago. I love this case when we talk about it. I think I was director of nursing at the time. And all HIPAA stuff is out of the window because both of the people have passed away, but it was a TB case at a bar. And she was an active case, and after it was investigated, the TB cases are always investigated by the county. Counties of every place in Ohio do TB, right? So it's never at the city health departments. And so Butler County was following this case or whatever and told her to stay away. We kept getting calls that she's in the bar serving, she's in the bar serving, she's in the bar serving. So we had to call an emergency meeting. That was not a really special meeting, but it was an emergency meeting. It was 7 o'clock. Health board met to say, what do we do? And we had to basically say we got to close the bar because she was still in the bar causing an imminent threat. And so we closed the bar and talked to her husband and said, you can open up your business and your establishment, but you got to keep your wife out of here. He said, okay. We opened up the bar, she came back. They got calls, she's still back serving tonight or whatever. So then we had to go close it again. We had to post it on the door that we closed it, and then we helped Butler County do TB tests in the parking lot on the hood of cars to all the patrons. And we were getting all these calls in, and then all the media was calling in And this was really funny because the place was called Hillbilly Heaven, and everybody laughed and said, really, what's the name? Everybody said, Hillbilly Heaven, that was the name of the bar. And if you start looking at, people that look like they have TB, it's chronic cough, right? But at a bar, everybody had chronic coughs, right? So, and it was so funny because people were calling us, should I get tested? And I'm like, do you go to the bar? No, I don't go to the bar. And I'm like, well, you're not at risk. I just wash clothes next door. And I said, well, that's okay, you're not at risk, but when my clothes are in the dryer, I go to the bar. I'm like, well, you might wanna get tested. So it was really funny, but when we went through that, so that was something that we kind of worked through really quickly, and we had to get that done. And then over the holidays, Butler County did not do direct observed therapy, so I had to go out over Thanksgiving weekend or whatever and watch her take her medicine, and it was pretty interesting. That was a small, quick emergency that we had to work through. But the Board of Health has to come in there, and you had to come in at night and make the decision. Are you gonna close up somebody's establishment and livelihood? So those are kind of close things. If we get into larger, major things, then of course the state's always telling us what to do, and the federal government's telling them what to do. And so we're just kind of following orders at that point, like when there was 9/11 or whatever. People up in the state of, in New York area or whatever are still following. So health departments are still following the surveillance from 9/11 as far as the fire department, lung conditions, et cetera, because that was a big episode and incident, and they're seeing how people are getting different chronic, respiratory issues from that event. So it continues and continues. And I do believe you said it, 9/11 was when we started really going into all of these emergency planning because of terrorist threats and et cetera. Always, that's around. But we also went through anthrax. Some of you may have been around when we went through the white powder events. And so we were getting calls, Carla and I, we were if you found white powder, it only could go through the certain labs. So the health departments were the ones that have to call and transport it to Columbus or whatever. So we did have some of those events too during that time. I can't even remember when that was. Do you remember when anthrax was really big?
Right after 9/11.
Yeah, was it right, with all those envelopes and stuff, and we had some AK still at the time or whatever. It was those kind of threats. None of them panned out to be anthrax, of course, but a lot of baby powder and stuff. But that's it. But I think Olivia's amazing. She does a good job to do that, and she gets it, so thank you. Unless you guys have any questions for Olivia? No, you're good? Yay. Good job.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us next up to FAB, speaking of.
Still just working with FAB. We start this week. We have 2 focus groups this week, and that should be the end of our gathering of data, I do believe. So I think Wednesday night and Thursday night, we have focus groups. We were trying to focus on the people that we didn't get through our other surveys. So men of color, under $70,000 population. So we were looking at the wholes of what we didn't gather from the first surveys. And so we will let you know how that goes, but we're gonna talk about access to health care, why they do not go to the doctor, what do they think is their emergencies or their most important health issues, et cetera. So that's exciting. That's this week, 6 o'clock, Wednesday and Thursday night.
Right.
And that's it. And Tobacco 21, we're just starting back with Tobacco 21. As you all know, looked like it was paused and out the door, but the governor vetoed it, so it's moving forward. And so we're gonna get back with Interact for Health. They received our grant for the help and the financial support, but they paused it because they thought we're not gonna need it, so we're back.
And to be clear, the retail licensing was paused, not.
Right, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, the retail licensing, thank you, yes. As far as the locals having the ability to license facilities, so correct. And that's it, unless anybody wanted to talk about the special meeting.
Yeah, I do. I wanna know where we go from here. What's the outcome of that thing? Nothing?
It's in the hands of either the planning commission or city council if they wanted to propose any retail density or zoning restrictions.
So it's up to them.
Now, I don't, question, I think, and this might be for clarity, since I think we can do capping, the Board of Health can say do capping, I think. Cause that's not
Voter
a
did
zoning
not
issue
recommend
or any
that.
of that. So who did that?
The legal department.
To
He
cap the-
recommended that it not come from Board of Health, that it be from the legislative,
Okay,
or from council or planning commission.
okay. So we
So
could
it would have to
maybe-
go through both of those.
Okay, for the planning, okay.
Mhm.
Because and when I spoke with Councilman Muterspa, he said he had no problem with capping. He just had a problem with decreasing the number. So it's up to you all if we want to approach it again. I can check and see if it's any, or we can just let it go. I mean, we can always, I think we could probably come back at any time to cap it. But at the end of the meeting, he said he had no problem with capping it. He just didn't like the number to go to half. And so, it's up to us.
Well, I haven't been to many council meetings. I think that was the second one I was ever at, but that was really an eye-opener.
Yeah, me too.
And just as a comment, I found him to be very intimidating and that was quite an that's not how
Quite
I
so.
figured a meeting should go. I mean, he was very bullying and nasty to you and to me, but mostly to you. I found it.
Oh, I was, yeah. Is that, do they
That's how
normally
they
talk
run,
to you
if that's
that
how they
way?
run the city, I've
Okay.
got a big problem.
You don't have to say anything, I get it. Yeah, I also made a point to, and I was told that that was out of character, but it was, I won't do it again. I won't subject myself to it to be in that position again. I thought that it was not productive and disrespectful.
I felt like there could have been more listening, that it could have occurred from our side of the table.
I don't think it really mattered what we said.
Yeah.
It was,
But,
the point was made. We got it.
so, I don't personally plan to raise, the question as to whether they want to, because I said in the meeting, I wasn't gonna be the one to do that. As you can tell, I think if I were the one to recommend it, it would probably sink.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave that up to them if they want to move forward. They obviously are aware that what Board of Health's recommendation, and I don't know if Planning Commission is aware that they can propose that as well.
So I'll check into that.
So, is James the staff member for Planning Commission?
I think so. Is that zoning? That's zoning, it would be James.
Yeah, so you may actually want to recommend James watch that meeting.
Okay.
And if he wants to broach it with Planning Commission, just at least to inform them that they have the authority to request that if they want.
Okay.
Because it could come from them. I don't know where it would go, because it would still have to pass council, but if a different body recommended it as well, it
You'd like it better.
who knows? But it's good that people understand their roles and their
Yeah, and we can look into
authorities and
that.
powers too.
Because I really believe, we looked at this before, I really believe that the health board has more authority than that, but I can look into it. It's an
Yeah, I
independent
mean, that was
board.
just, it was a
Right.
recommendation from legal
Yeah.
that it not come from the Board of Health.
Right.
It wasn't that it can't.
Okay. Only because a Board of Health, and that's why I was telling Dr. Zalit, I think we would be remiss as a Board of Health not to side on and err on the side of health, right? And so I'll talk to you all about an interview I had with Channel 9 and food facilities. And I always said that I am very supportive of businesses, but I'm supportive of our residents and the safety of food
Did they
facilities,
take that
right?
as a recommendation from us, that it should be capped, or they just were
I mean,
were
we
just
made it clear,
discussing?
I think, in the meeting. I mean, I tried
So
to.
they know what we want.
Yeah, I did do a follow-up video, I don't know if you guys know that, but I spent quite a bit of time, because obviously I felt a little like there was some tension during the meeting.
Just a little.
And then I saw some posts on Facebook, and I was like, okay, I needed to get some facts straight about roles, responsibilities, and the whole process, because it wasn't, there was some misinformation on Facebook about it. So on my mayor's page, I did a video, so if you guys wanna have a look at just what I said, I try to stay factual about it, as much as possible. So it's it's out there.
So to be continue, we can go back, we still have time, but we can go back and get all of that
Why is
clarified.
legal recommending that it not come from us?
I can read it real quick for you if you want.
Yeah.
Let me find that.
Yeah, we could get the, cause I've been around 25 years and they really have done things, you know, a lot of times if the Board of Health makes recommendations, it usually can become law. But we'll see.
Yeah, it was more the, if someone were to press later that he didn't think it was gonna, uphold as
It
well
wouldn't
as.
hold a lot of weight.
Yeah,
Okay.
which we have a tendency to do that, like our vacant property legislation isn't great and thus
Yeah.
we have no teeth, right? So,
But Carla, didn't they say capping was one thing that was a piece that was upheld across the United States when they had, as far as, I thought.
it was more that if it came from Board of Health, it had a different ability to be enforced or not, I
Yeah,
don't know.
see, for instance-
I'll search for it while we go through some other stuff, cause my computer's not.
Okay, just curious.
The capping part, but I have that there, I'll follow up on those points. But again, I was very proud of the Board of Health.
Yeah, thank you
I tried to
guys.
stand in the way of your arrows because like I said, how a health, body cannot, one, speak their mind, err on the side of health issues, right? That's your opinion, that's your factual knowledge, and I don't think that should have been attacked.
Okay, here's what, legal said, because I did ask them, I said, who has what authority, like, who can do this? He said, in short, density and buffering are much more functions of zoning than health. In the absence of known authority to the contrary, my strong recommendation would be to enact such regulations as text amendments to the city's development code under section 1226.03 code text and map amendments, rather than through health district legislation. Otherwise, I think there'd be a pretty good risk of exposure to the city, or really the health district, should someone file suit and argue the health district exceeded its actual or implied authority.
But this is health, this isn't just a business, I mean, you're putting up a gas station, this
But it is
actually
also a
health.
business, and so I think that is why
Kind of overlaps.
it does overlap, yeah.
So is density and buffering the same as capping? Cause I think
Density is capping.
see, I thought density was when you do one per every, I thought capping was just at the limit that they were, that's why I got confused. You see what I mean, as far as,
I would put them in the same bucket, but maybe they're not. But in my mind, they are in
might
the
be.
same bucket,
okay.
but maybe not, that could be another question. So he said, as such, any density and or buffering text amendments to the zoning code would need, well, then he uses the word need, which would need to be initiated or proposed by either council or planning commission. In turn, planning commission would hold a public hearing to make a recommendation to council on the text amendments, and then council would hold its own public hearing, and determine whether to formally adopt with modifications, or reject planning commission's recommendation. There you go. Obviously, you guys as individual Board of Health members or citizens are welcome to contact council or planning commission on your own as well, so there's that. Cause your opinions matter, and I'm really grateful you guys spent the time and energy to come to council, and I hope you're not turned off by council. Any other comments on tobacco 21? Many, I know, okay. I'm happy to talk to anybody individually too, if you want to. Okay, that brings us to new business.
New business,
No travel authorizations?
no travel.
Okay, the next one is approval of maternity licensure for Atrium Medical Center. Did you wanna?
Carla can really talk to this more. We investigate, or we have to always sign off on the hospital's licensure for maternity. And so this happens every year. So,
Remember this,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah, it happens every year. They call, and I think a long time ago, we used to go out there and inspect all of the maternity facilities. We just don't do it anymore. but it's a license that the Board of Health has to get. Does that make sense? So, it comes every year.
Anybody have any questions on that from the packet?
I think all these are Carla's.
Do we have a motion to approve the maternity licensure for Atrium Medical Center?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay, next is the review of smoke-free investigations provider agreement. This is a review of it, not an approval of it?
Do we approve it? Do we approve it? No. It's just a review. This is, the state of Ohio, when we get a smoking complaint, we go out to inspect. They send us money for
Smoking investigations.
smoking investigations.
The only
Yeah.
change is the fee, they fixed, it's $175 now, so for each investigation. We get paid to do the investigations.
Oh, by them, oh, okay.
By the state, and they're upon complaints, right?
Right,
We don't only
based
go
on
out for
complaints.
complaints. Of course, if we go in there for inspection and we see it, we can do it ourselves, but these are usually generated by complaints.
Anybody have any questions on that? So that is in direct relation to that, page we get every month.
Correct.
With the
Correct.
packet about
Yes.
smoking complaints. Okay, the next one is the review of the second quarter report for 2023. Any comments from staff or questions from the board? Okay, it has so been reviewed.
Yes. Just FYI, we are going out every other Wednesday to the farmer's market, and we're doing surveys out there as well. What can the health department do for you, da-da-da-da. We didn't go out the last Wednesday because the air quality was so bad. Remember how terrible the emergency air quality? I didn't want staff sitting out there from 2 to 7 in that air quality. But we're getting a lot of good responses and getting a lot of good connections through people. I think she received 45 surveys returned. And we also raffle off little farmer's market cookbooks and that kind of stuff. We're also giving out, I don't know if I told you this, so if it's repetitive, forgive me, but we're giving out information how to preserve your fruits and vegetables. We're giving out like little Ziploc bags. We're telling people to get your vegetables, freeze them if you're not gonna use them so they don't go bad. What vegetables go bad, how to preserve the pieces, like, you know, sometimes you can cut off pieces, other times you have to throw them away. And then if you're gonna go out of town, encourage to give it to your neighbors, connect with your neighbors, give them away to people so you don't waste food. So it's some of that information that goes out this summer. So along with that, I was looking at the surveys in here. We're trying to get surveys out many places as possible. Laura also set up, and I don't know if you guys are down in the lobby, but we have a lot of messages that come across that TV downstairs in the lobby as they pay the water bills about Men's Health Month or whatever. So we're getting a lot of information out that way, as well as our table. So it's a lot more information, health department information that goes out to people. And those bags on our doors that we put information in, we refill those areas a lot. So people are getting information out with different things, so.
Great.
So that was part of that's part of the quarterly report too, because you have the summary of some of your surveys in here. It's like right here, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks like people think.
We're courteous?
Yes.
Yeah.
Looks like good feedback, positive.
I mean, we tried.
Okay, that brings us 2024 environmental fees. Is this what?
That's Carla.
Okay.
So every year, we're required to do a cost analysis of the retail food and the food safety fees. We have to review the fees. The fees are calculated based on the time that we spend in the program. So the fees can go up or down every year, or they can remain the same. We also use indirect and direct costs to determine the fees. So this year, I don't recommend necessarily any fee change. We're pretty much, if you look at the current cost, $146, the maximum cost is $189.97, and you can go, maximum fees, you can look accordingly. We also spent a lot of time in the program training. We had a new sanitarian last year, which was Sarah. I also like to put in a little buffer just in case they review it and, there may be a mistake or something like that. So there's no change. I don't recommend any changes for the FSO RFE or the, commercial temporary. If you look at the maximum fee we could charge is $45, $24, and we're at $39. So no recommendations or changes for that.
What is the risk for?
Risk,
What are
we,
the risk numbers?
Go back, Amanda.
each facility is based, it means the level of risk.
Like,
So,
what would constitute a risk for?
So a risk 4 would be something like, a Bob Evans, because of what they do in the facility. If they reheat foods, there's just a higher level of risk in that facility. A level 1 would be like a drive-through, because everything is prepackaged. And as you increase the numbers, the risk increases. So a risk level 2 is when you start handling food. Level 3, you're cutting, slicing meats. And level 4, you're starting to reheat food, so you're handling that product more. Okay. So, with the swimming pool fees, we're at $220 for all, and the additional pool, $100. We had a lot of training in this program too, last year, so at this time we could increase the fees, but I necessarily don't recommend increasing them this year. These are the fees for the household sewage treatment system. The only fee in here, we need to, and I don't see it in here, Amanda. I do have an extra fee in here, for off-lot discharge. We have to do if we have that type of system, we have to do a water we may have to do a water sample. And we don't have a fee for that, and I'm sorry, I don't have it in here, but the fee was $75, to do the water sample, plus the operator, the homeowner needs to pay for the testing. And we have to take those samples, the closest place would be Cincinnati. So we don't have any of those, but if we had to take the sample, we couldn't charge them because we don't have a fee. So I'm sorry, that's not in there, I'm not sure why, but it was a mistake.
So what would be the total fee? You said
It would be $75
plus?
to take the sample, and then whatever, I don't know what the, cost to do the sample, whatever the lab charges, plus the lab fee. So it's $75 just for us to take the sample.
So are you gonna develop a charge for that or? is this gonna-
$75.
Right, and then, so the customer will know it's $75 plus.
the lab fee, and we'll find out whatever the lab.
And are we
Okay.
We
transporting
would
it?
have to transport
So
that.
does it also have mileage included in that? 'Cause we're
Um,
Unless
reimbursing
it's in the car,
mileage?
unless it's a city car, we don't do mileage
Yeah.
if one of our sanitarians' cars.
Okay,
you know,
but it
this-
does cost the city to drive that far.
Right, to go, yeah, we'll
Well,
have to bring it.
we could charge when you don't have a fee, the state says that you can come up with a reasonable fee. So we won't know until we have that first charge. You see what I'm saying, how much it would cost. We can do more. I looked at Butler County's fee and theirs was $75, so I just kind of stayed within that. We can charge more if we need to. If you recommend.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
just.
No, I think we
I've
just
never
need to
helped
bring
set
that
the
fee
fees.
back to the board, since it's not here, so $75, we have to look and see what the other fee is. How can we approve a fee that we don't know what the fee is yet, the other one?
We're not
The-
approving that fee. We're saying we're charging $75. We're not approving the lab fee.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
I don't know what that fee is, and it could change, so.
Oh, so you're not gonna, that's gonna vary each time?
It could, I mean,
Okay.
I don't.
Does that get charged directly to the
Homeowner?
Homeowner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could bring it back it's no rush on that.
Okay,
But
that's
if
good.
you prefer.
I was just
can-
wondering if it had to be a flat fee that we had to approve, but you just said $75.
$75 was a
and
flat
then-
fee,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And like I
Okay.
said, you just come up with a fee, and I'm thinking how much it would cost us to.
Just stay with that.
To stay with that. Would you like me, well, we can talk about that. I can come back and.
Well, I know, I think we can do that. I mean, I'm good with that, and then if it needs to be, because you said we may not even have
We don't
this.
even have it
Yeah,
yet, but I
right.
didn't wanna
Okay.
have to do it and not
Right.
charge at all.
Right.
So, cause right now we're required to do the sample, if
And-
we have a
Right.
facility.
And the Board of Health has to approve all
All
fees.
fees.
So if something were to come in that we have to do, we would have to come back to you guys to say, is this, you know, you have to approve that fee. So we just need it on the books, whether we use it or not.
Well,
That's what
whether we
you
use
said.
it or not, correct. We did not collect any, private water, fees last year. Normally, if we do, it's maybe like an abandonment, so I had no change in those fees. I didn't even do a cost analysis, for that, cause we didn't have any, occur any costs. Body art is another one. Body art and the campgrounds, I have to do an ordinance change because one of the fees, categories was left out, last year, maybe not last year, but when we, maybe it was last year. So I need to, adjust the categories and I have a increase, in that fee of $50.
I have a question about campgrounds. And I think I could kind of loop this through health in some way. If we were to make some sort of a regulation in the city that campgrounds can have a maximum length of stay of no more than, let's say, 30 days, and then the RV or tent or whatever it is has to move for at least 1 day and come back. That's pretty normal. I'm like a full-time RVer. I'm very versed in that. It would keep from these like RVs parking, getting like decks and whatnot put on them, and rodents and things that are just not normal for like a house because you have a foundation. And I've seen them pose great health risks. I know we do have one campground in town that is very much stretching the law on campground.
Where is that?
Well, the only one we have is on Carmody right now, cause the
Yeah.
other one was,
It's, he's building trailers on site and putting a hitch on the front and one taillight on the back to loop around the law. And it's not actually a campground, they're trailers, permanent trailers. And I don't know who, like, I don't know where this goes, but it's not what it's intended to be.
I think is that Deborah? Is that Deborah and Ashley upstairs?
I think that
Because
would
it
have
seems
to
like-
come from some.
They'll go back to city council and they'll
Yeah.
argue the restraining trade.
Yeah, we,
So that's why I'm looking at this from a
Where you live?
health perspective of most places have an ordinance that you have to move it every 30 days. Like you have a max length of stay, which would mean those things can't move, like they're not movable.
So are they hooked up to the public utility, like?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they are hooked up to public
Yes.
utilities? Okay.
So it's basically a trailer park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
That they're trying
loophole.
to-
Well, they
It's
have.
like 27 loopholes.
They're called park camp models, and they do have a registration.
Oh, I know.
And they must stay on their axles, so,
Right. Anyway,
but yeah.
I'm not, I would love Middletown to have an actual campground, which is why we, anyway, I don't know
think
where,
when
I
they-
don't know where that, I guess that's maybe a council ordinance kind of a thing.
You know, and that's the thing, to be proactive, because once they come, it's hard to get them.
I know, I tried before it went
I know,
in, I
it's
tried.
I mean, being
And I
proactive
recommended
matters.
it, and it fell on deaf ears at the time, and now here we are. Anyway, I think I think it ultimately does become a health issue when you have these trailers that, I mean, in theory, there's supposed to be space underneath them, there is gonna be space, and it's nasty, it's trash, it's debris, it collects rodents, and it's just not how it's intended.
Right, right.
And anyway, that's why I just thought I'd raise it, cause campground fees, but I don't think I don't know. We'll just table that, if anyone has an idea how to bring that up, let me know.
There's a proposal for the vending fees, the maximum is showing that the maximum we could charge is $56.54. However, we can only charge what the CPI is, the Consumer Price Index, so it's $1.20. So $19.73 is the proposal for each vending machine location that we have in the city.
And those are vending machines that have fresh food in
Has
them, right?
fresh,
Not
yes.
like M&Ms.
Potato chips, right, just
Oh.
perishable items, yeah, and there's usually in the manufacturing facilities in Middletown. And mobiles, a fee increase, we're going from $95 to $110. So those are for the mobile food trucks that we have in the city.
How do you determine who approves the mobile food truck? Is it based on where it's registered? So if like the owner lives in Middletown?
Or if they have a business in Middletown, yeah, but it's where they reside.
And if there were a mobile food truck that came in from out of state,
They would
How
have
does
to
that work?
comply. Usually, they would have to, they can comply at the first, if they go from event to event, where, whatever jurisdiction they, go to first. Like if they're coming from Florida and say they stop in Cincinnati, then they can get one in Cincinnati.
so
or
do
vice
you guys
versa.
approve those here for out of state?
We could.
Have you ever had the
before.
request?
We have,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and they would have to comply with our code, just
Mhm.
like no matter
Right.
what, yeah, yep. So if we could have a, I guess, vote as
Yeah.
approved as presented, yes, the fees. Well, if you have any recommendations, please feel free to let me know.
So it's not a vote today, is it? It's
Yeah,
just
this is for the
discussion?
proposal.
Okay. It just says discussion for environmental
Oh.
fees.
Okay.
I mean, do we wanna
We-
vote? I mean, I'm just asking,
Are
we
you
have
guys
to have the three
prepared
votes?
to vote and approve that? Would you rather
Just,
we?
Let's do it.
I hear, let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the 2024 environmental fees as proposed?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, we're getting stuff done. Next topic is board member topics, any open discussion. Do you guys have any topics that you wanted to raise? I was gonna let you guys know Senator Lang's office contacted me yesterday. They're hosting a Butler County homelessness meeting on August 14th. We'll see, I'm gonna go. It's in Hamilton. They're having it with local officials and other interested parties regarding homelessness and the issues surrounding it that are being experienced throughout the county. The message that I personally plan to bring, which is, way too expensive and high level, and still though I feel like the message needs to get out, that we need mental health facilities, because I think the more I talk to people and the more you realize who's actually on the streets, it's people who, many of them should be in a psychiatric ward of some sort, and we just got rid of those because they were inhumane in some capacity, but at the end of the day, there are people who just are not mentally capable of taking care of themselves. And I think it has to be a state, I personally feel like it has to come from the state and organized at a state level, but I also am not well versed in the psychiatric wards of the past or any of this. This is in my mind as to strategically it's a long-term issue because that doesn't just happen overnight, but that's what's in my head. I'm open to people's thoughts about that, and it's just where after having tried to find local solutions and stopgaps, it's just not working. I'm hearing horror stories about bigger cities, of course you all, I'm sure, have heard those. Namely the defecation on the streets. I mean, it's getting out of control a lot of places.
It's cause they tore all the trees down. They would defecate in the woods.
Oh, I'm not talking
It's-
about Middletown, I'm talking
I'm
about
not-
bigger
I'm
cities.
talking about everywhere.
But
I
yeah,
mean-
there is happening here too,
Yeah,
it's just not at the
yeah.
extreme levels.
I think the picture is so big, you guys, we need to, I don't know if this is going to, because we've been, Lord have mercy, meeting. Sally's been a part of a lot of the meetings when we go to mental health and homeless, and the sad thing is, they said it's a couple of things, no places to go, right? And a lot of the housing is complicated, because people have no IDs and can't get into housing. sometimes they have checks, but they don't have an address for the check, so it's just, it's such a complex situation. Drug addiction, they said it's a lot of meth. A lot of people are really concerned about the meth that's out there, because a lot of other things can be treated, but the meth makes the individuals dangerous, or look and appear dangerous and are dangerous as far as their behaviors. So they're talking about that. And then a lot of cities, really, when you do the cleaning of the trees or whatever of the areas that they do, because there are a lot of camps throughout the county. I'll just stay in Butler County. If they did an overhead of all the county, Westchester, there's a lot of camps. And when I say a lot of camps, if you were to clear them out, they would have to come somewhere and move somewhere. So they're throughout the county, so I don't know what will happen with it. But I think something needs to begin to happen so that we can start addressing the problem instead of we're just moving everybody around. And a lot of people will say, we're getting a lot of, I was trying to look at our thing, I just approved indigent that was found in the woods. And then they went, I mean, so those are things that are happening too. So, I mean, it gets us every direction. So I don't know if if it's gonna be one meeting, because I've been a part of a lot of these meetings, and they're just complex. I mean, it's really hard. Because I think they're putting everybody in the same boat. They're either mentally ill and or abusing drugs or alcoholism, but then they could be DD, and then they could be housed. A lot of people that you see downtown go home. So they're not homeless. They just appear homeless. People point to them and say they're homeless, but they really have a dwelling. And so we just need to get some kind of.
The latest encampment that's very visual is the Journal News building.
Is the what?
The Journal News building.
Inside the journal?
Outside of it.
Outside of it.
On the
So-
stairs, in the back, in the front.
I saw that over.
Saw it this morning, it was a lot of people. Right there in downtown on Broad Street. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I feel for them, but I also am like, okay, we got.
Is it tents? I gotta go look. Is it tents there, or are they just hanging
Sleeping
out?
bags on the
Oh, okay,
stairs.
sleeping bags and
There's an
stuff.
overhang, I think,
On
there.
Okay. Because they used to do that over at the Journal News building. They used to do that all behind Swire too. Remember before they cleaned all behind the Swires? Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So, let me, I'll hear about it, I'm sure.
I'll forward it to
14th?
you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other, open topics? All right, Health Commissioner report.
Oh, just a few, because I know this is a long meeting. Went to 17 Strong Summit.
Yeah, how did it go?
It was excellent. So 17 Strong was brought to my attention by Mayor Nicole, and it's a neighborhood program. They've been at it kind of for 10 years. I didn't realize it was that long before it developed into what it was. Very exciting. It's Hamilton's neighborhoods coming together and working together. They've put 17 neighborhoods, and they have a little cube that they take from neighborhood to neighborhoods, which is a trailer that has all the stuff that you would clean up your neighborhood. So they just set it in the neighborhood, and people use all the gloves, trash pickup stuff and whatever, and then the city picks it back up. And they talked about how it started. It was their first summit, how it started, some of the lessons learned, people involved. City is very heavily involved in the project. They have a department, and they've given money to the project as well. But our ambassadors went. It was probably 12 of us that went that day, yeah. Because the Ohio Is project, the ambassadors, they're doing some of the similar things. It's just not well developed yet, and they want to get out in the community. So that was really interesting. I have some other information if I have the book that you gave, we got, but so if you wanted to, but it was just interesting. It was excitement for Hamilton to get started, and the people there, was probably over 200 people there. And to me, they seem like 200 ambassadors, right? Because they're all talking about how wonderful Hamilton is. However, what we learned afterwards is Middletown, everything they were talking about, Middletown has too. So they have a park, and they said, here's Rotary Park, and it looked boring. But then they said, and then now here's Rotary Park, and it was family and friends paying in the park. So they were encouraging people to go out to your parks for your events. Go out to your parks when you meet people, when you meet somebody, to take a picnic basket in a park. Make your parks come alive. So a lot of the things were looking exactly like Middletown, except they were just kind of doing events downtown, out in the open, or in the unusual places. They said things as simple as waving to your neighbors, say hello, talk, get to know people, start connecting your neighborhoods. So that makes it more safe, more secure, turn your porch light on, etc. So they were talking about basic things that you can do, doesn't cost anything, but it makes your community safer and more secure. And so with that said, the ambassadors are really working diligently to clean up this one corner. It is Yankee Road and 8th Avenue. And they're getting ready, the city gave a big planner kind of thing, so they're gonna get burns out there, and we're gonna spend the money to not develop it, but clean it up, cut it, plant flowers and do things, and then have the neighborhood take care of that lot. It's a city lot that the city said we could do this for, but it's kind of like an entryway to their community in a sense. So we're doing things like that. We're getting ready to pick up Amanda, so I'll let you know with that, Sally, because that should be really fun to do. So we have money now to do the rest of those high-risk census tracts. So more to come, and we're hoping that it's gonna be a celebration, and we'll get everybody the invitation in August, which will be the summary of the project, where we're going next, and what we've accomplished. And so everybody will be able to come, even if it's your first introduction to the program, you'll know what the program is, what we've been doing, what's next, and where we're going. And so everybody can get on board with that too. So you guys will get that invitation. So we're really excited, because I mean, and then 2 of them were at council meetings. They're going out to council meetings. They're going out to Butler County Commission meetings. So they're getting involved in how they can make policy changes too. Really exciting. And then last but not least, I wanted to just tell you quickly, Dan Monk came in and kind of interviewed Carla and myself, but I was the only one on camera because Carla was my background noise. And it's Channel 9. But the question he wanted to say, he said that it was 10 worst restaurants in Butler County. 6 of them were Middletowns as far as inspections. And so we had to explain to him. He said, so are you harder on other people? Are you whatever, whatever? So we explained to him, now hopefully this will get across, that you can't compare apples to apples. So what Carla and Sarah gave me quick sanitarian lessons. So for instance, she said hospice, hey baby, of the tail, hospice is hard to get a lot of criticals in a hospice because they're not eating a lot, it's not a full kitchen, they're just maybe doing certain things. So you may have very few inspections, but then a 24-hour place can get a lot of violations, right? Because they don't have the time to shut down and clean like they can. And so you can, so that was one example. Another one, he said, Hamilton County had, wonder how come we didn't bring people into administrative hearings to you guys. Hamilton County had 3, Kentucky, or 3 or 4, Kentucky had 7 administrative hearings. And I'm like, are you comparing how many facilities they have compared to Middletown? So what he was saying is, if some restaurants are bad, why aren't we calling them into the Board of Health, and why don't they have administrative hearings?
Did they tell you who they were?
Yeah, he told us all who we were. We could explain to him all the inspections that were on there too. We could explain to him how they were on there. I told him that the Board of Health is very business friendly, but we always are very, our clients and our patrons come first. We want people, our residents, to eat in healthy, safe restaurants, but we're business friendly. So if we can educate restaurants and businesses how to improve what they're doing, you know, we try to do it, we try to err on that side instead of closing them down and saying.
Was he going
So-
off of, by any chance, foodborne illness statistics?
Yeah,
Because
he only
No.
had one, that's what Carla, we talked about too. He had one
I won't
report
talk to
of
him,
somebody that
just
had a
saying no.
foodborne illness, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
I will
wasn't
pick up the phone for him.
substantiated. We explained to him about foodborne illnesses. We usually like foodborne illnesses to be 2 or more people in unrelated households, because if they're your family, they could've got sick from breakfast, and then they went somewhere to eat. And so we explained that it was one complaint, and it wasn't substantiated, it was no, and we explained to them what people should do. If they're sick from a restaurant, they should go see medical prepare, get a sample, a food sample as well as a stool sample, and that's how you can really tell if that restaurant or that food made you sick. So we gave them the opportunity, I mean, we were trying to educate them, but hopefully it will.
He already wrote his article before
Yeah.
he met you.
Oh,
so
really?
no.
See?
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully, but,
What were the six?
huh?
What were the six?
Oh, you went, the restaurants in there?
Yeah.
They were, help me out, Carla.
Is this an old article? Cause I remember reading one a long
They do
time
them
ago.
every year.
He said he does them every
Oh,
year.
okay.
One restaurant was Taku, one restaurant was Wendy's, Needler's Market, BJ's Market, Swire. Swire, we explained to him what Swire was changing hands,
Yes.
right? And so when you change hands, you make sure that that restaurant starts at the top, right, level, so we made sure that everything was done correctly. We also told them that our inspectors, and just in case, just to remind you, and Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're mandated to do inspections twice a year, they're called standards. We try to do it at the beginning of the year, towards the end of the year. You do follow-ups if you find a lot of violations. Again, those gives you more violations. So if I went to Ruth's Restaurant in March, and I found 10 violations, and I wanted to follow up with her in April, and I found 3 of those, then that's 13. You see what I mean? So they add up. So when we go back to follow up, our inspectors tries to follow up because they don't want what we see in March to maybe got corrected, and then we go back in September, right? We wanna follow up to see if they corrected those things. Some places that may have a lot of restaurants or whatever, they may not go back for follow-up inspections. They just tell people to correct them,
The
and they
narrative
see them in the
is you're
fall.
more thorough.
Yeah, so I told them we were more thorough.
So it's actually
Yeah.
safer.
Right, and so I told them we're more thorough.
Because we compare.
Yeah.
Carla?
No,
You
I,
said-
I was saying, I don't think that they really, like you said, compare apples to apples when they look at this story. There's so many variables, you
Mhm.
know? It's, a lot of times when we do inspections, like Jackie says, if they have 20 violations, we may go back, we don't have to go back on non-critical violations. We have to go back on critical violations, which we go back within 3 days. But if they can have 20 non-critical violations, and we can let them sit there until the next 6 months, but we don't do that, because those could lead to something else. So if you keep going back, they're gonna see those violations, so I'm trying to explain that to him, but. And
Right.
also just because, and we try to get them corrected, as long as they get them corrected, we're not gonna bring them into the Board of Health or have administrative hearing. It's when you get that non-compliance and they refuse or have no interest in correcting those violations. They can have mice droppings, but if we go back and the mice droppings are gone, we're not gonna bring you in. It's that non-compliance where we bring you into the board. I don't think the board wants us to keep having. Just to keep having hearings, just to have hearings, so.
Nor, you have to follow up. If you've said, okay, if you don't do it, we're gonna close you down, well, you have to follow up that threat. We explained to them also about non-criticals and criticals. And so I told Carla, give me some non-criticals. Non-criticals being a hole in the wall, we want that report repaired. A critical would be food out of temperature. A critical would be not seeing somebody wash their hands. Those are the criticals. And so often those inspections that we talked about, there was a lot of NCs, non-critical. But when Carla goes out to be audited, and when the state comes down or ag comes down, they get dinged if they don't do all those things. If they don't note all those things, they'll say, you didn't say anything about this hole in the wall. So an inspector wants to be thorough, right, when they see those things, but they could have a whole lot of, like, NCs, non-critical issues that needs to be done. So we try to tell them that too, so we'll see. But I say yes, because it gives the opportunity to educate the population, but how this is slanted, I don't know. If they'll be slanted, I don't know. So,
Yes, it will be.
Yeah, it will be, so.
And we do have facilities teetering
Is he
over,
ready yet?
you know, bringing
No,
them
he said
in,
next week,
talking,
so it goes
having a
Friday.
pre-administrative hearing, so it's not like, but we do give them, if we bring them to the board, we've given them every opportunity to make sure that they,
Absolutely.
cause we do have one right now that we're working on, but we're not just gonna haphazardly bring people
Yeah,
to the board.
she brings them
I-
to me first, and then it comes here for you guys to really get ready to make a decision whether they will, and you usually don't close them, usually say, close down and clean real well for 24 hours or something like that. We usually don't try to close them, and I always tell people, Steak and Shake was not closed by the board. Steak and Shakes, the board's directions for Steak and Shakes, they did not do. So we said, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or you need to close. They didn't do X, Y, and Z, so they closed. So it's not really us closing them down.
Back in the day, there's a new
Right.
one now,
Yeah.
right?
Correct, back in the day, yeah, back in that day.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
you were saying something else?
I just wanna applaud you guys, because there's also the fact that you're able to politely and respectfully work with these
Mhm.
food establishments so that they do comply,
Yeah.
and you don't have to bring them here,
Right.
so you're having success with that, which is good.
And also, you guys, Carla's been around 25 years. She knows these people. I mean, sometimes when we go, they're people that we know. They're people that, you know, that we've worked with for a long time, or they could be friends, relatives, foes, citizens, whatever. So we really we try to have good relationships with them and educate them and tell them why something is incorrect. So, yeah. Anyway, that was the last thing. I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Oh, I went to Dottie Emmerich. I just want to say her and honor her. She, saw Jeff there. She passed away. She was, help me out, Jeff, 89, 90 years old. She was, I call her an angel. Everybody said she had this fire spirit, but I always saw just the sweetness in her. But she worked with Shalom for many, many, many years. And if you ever met this lady, you would just see the heart of God, in my opinion. She was just an amazing woman, and I've been known her over the years because we've been doing vaccinations over at Shalom for many years. And she passed away. Her memorial was Friday, and I was honored to see her daughter and meet her daughter and give her a hug and tell her how special her mother was. But those are the kind of people, a longtime resident in Middletown. She's been here forever, and those are the jewels that we have in our community. So I'm glad they did an article in the paper for her. But I just wanted to say that was one of those wonderful opportunities I always have when you meet those kind of people. And Dottie was a cool woman. She was so sweet and fearless. She would work with people that were homeless or whatever, and she was small, and they could be really tall, whatever, and honey or whatever, and she would talk to them, and she was just amazing. So that's all. I just acknowledge that.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Genoway.
Disease reporting for City of Middletown for June. We had 2 syphilis cases. We had 2 aseptic meningitis, which is, you all hopefully remember, means it was viral, not bacterial meningitis from previous. We had 2 HIV, 9 hepatitis C, 3 hepatitis B, 3 carbapenem-resistant enterobacter, 1 coccidiomycosis, 10 gonorrhea, and 19 chlamydia. So kind of a diverse, interesting month for portable illnesses. That's all.
Chandra, sorry.
Just to piggyback on the disease report, just currently following up on what hopefully is the tail end of a couple of nursing home outbreaks of a multi-drug resistant bacterias, which of course those are our highest risk populations in the nursing homes. So part of that procedure is to screen them out. Like you have a positive person, you screen out the wing that they reside on, because there's that potential of cross-contamination with staff and therapies and things like that. So we're in the process of screening out both of these facilities to have negative results that it's not spread. So that's pretty much what we're going through right now. Other than that, we're trying to keep calm.
Mental health.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Carla.
We received, we approved the plans for Big Coffee. Middletown Food Mart, which is it was previously a drive-through, so they're reopening, they're approved and they're open, on Verity.
That's the 513 Lounge?
Yes, to the right of that, which they're planning on opening an Indian restaurant on the other side.
Really?
Yeah, but we haven't received plans for that yet. Still working with Cancun Mexican Restaurant, who disapproved their plans last month, so they've resubmitted, so we'll take another look at those.
It has all the time, and then they got me.
I know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's the one, that's out there by
Cancun, yeah.
How far along
Old
are they?
Charlie's.
It used to be a restaurant, right?
Yeah. They just need to,
Used to be Gold
Yeah.
Golden Corral.
And that is still on the front of the building, Golden
I
Corral.
heard that, yeah,
One side. of
one
it, yeah.
side.
What are they
Got the big
missing?
signs
Last
up
time?
front, but-
no, they submitted, I think they just received the rest of it, I don't think it was a whole lot.
Okay, so they're
Yeah,
almost.
it's not a whole
They're
lot.
close.
Yeah, that's all set. Rosa Parks, there's Head Start, will be going back into, Rosa Parks, so we received plans, for them. And Highland Food Truck Mobile, we're supposed to, I think they're doing Indian in their food truck too, so they have a mobile, so we haven't reviewed the plan, so. Also Angry Chicken, on, I think that's what, Dixie Highway, they expanded, so they're, should be done, we approved their expansion. I don't know if you've been in there, but it's.
Somebody just
They've done
mentioned
a
that
lot of work
yesterday.
in there.
Yeah, they've done
But
a
I
lot.
haven't.
Has anyone eaten in there?
I have not, they're just right in front of me, so I
Oh,
can
okay,
smell
you
it and
can
see it, but I haven't been there.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, it's Burger Week, I don't know why they weren't on that list, but it's Burger Week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have a burger.
Yeah, they have a burger. That's it, basically. It's just, maintaining our inspections. Oh, we did have a facility called Runaway Tacos that refused Sarah entry, to do an inspection. And, so I called the lady, she talked to her, she said she just wasn't feeling, she wasn't in a good mood, didn't let Sarah in. I'm like, well, that's not an option. Just because you're having a bad day, she wasn't having a bad day. There were no customers there, so I'm not sure what was going on, so I called her and told her that, she needs to make sure that she allows her in. She was apologetic. I went back with Sarah, 2 days later, but they were closed. So, I also have talked to legal to see if we could get an inspection warrant. I sent her a letter too, she decided not to allow us to do an inspection, because by law, she's required to let us enter the facility to do an inspection.
What was the name?
Runaway Tacos, it's on Yankee Road. Yeah.
Never even heard of it.
So I've never in
The
my
irony of the name.
30 years no one has ever not allowed me not to enter. They've asked me to come back, but they not flat out said no. So,
Leave, you can't come in.
so we'll see how that goes. So I talked with, law to see what the process is to get an inspection warrant if that happens again, so. But anyway, just FYI.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have that written. I'm gonna have to go find it.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
That's good, you can find it.
The wording.
Alright, sorry guys, I gotta find some verbiage here. Okay, here. I found it. So annually, we do a review for Jackie, and we have a personnel committee. So our personnel committee is Dr. Zollett, Mr. Bennell, and Lolly, myself. So we will be, just doing an executive session, assuming we get the motion and approval to move to executive session. And we'll chat about, Jackie's performance, get it all together, consolidated into one, cohesive feedback that we can then have a session with her at the next meeting to then just review her, annual evaluation, so that we check our box for the year and have a great conversation with Jackie. So, what we'll do is make a motion to move to executive session, and then we'll just say pending the end of that it will be a dismissal until the next Board of Health meeting. That way everyone doesn't have to stay until the end of that, because it's
And
pointless
just
if we
let
don't have any
Amanda-
business to perform after that. So I think I found.
I think you're good, and just let
Okay.
Amanda know.
So yeah, under the authority of ORC 121.22G1, I believe, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employee or official. Do we have a motion to move to executive session for the personnel committee for that purpose?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay, then we will adjourn, following executive session until August 8th, here, 7:30 a.m.
Okay, just
Thank you,
let us
guys.
know the time, thank you.